And it has a value just being a natural area of its own anywhere, but the fact that it's in a city makes it especially important. And we have this now, and we don't want to see this area destroyed with the sort of promise from the city that the area, well, it will grow back in a number of years, because it is nice now. The construction project, by the way, would take up a minimum 60-foot swath. On the segment 1, they've taken over 100 feet in areas, and what they end up leaving is this crushed rock, and they propose in terms of restoration to put 3 inches of topsoil on top of this slag rock that they've blasted up, and then they're going to put grass seed or sod on it. Now, it's hardly our idea of a natural area. There's many parks in this city which are sod and seed and have, the characteristic lollipop trees. In here, we're blessed with incredible variety and diversity of vegetation that is just astounding. People have been down here for ages enjoying this environment, and we hope it really can be preserved. We are, the city has come out saying, well, we need a water supply to the city, and we have no difficulty with that. We've never argued the fact that the city needs to update the system and get a good source of fresh, clean water to the city. We're all in favor of that. The only thing we're concerned about is the fact that they haven't picked the proper route to do it. And we have concerns that the environmental assessment process may not assess this environment as strongly as it might. As a group, we've asked for the terms of reference for the consulting companies that are studying this area and the area across the river, and we've yet to receive that from the city, because we feel it's important for the citizens to know what is being studied so we can have input now with the city, so that they don't produce a report that they then say to us, well, here it is, and if you aren't happy with it, too bad. The thing that that may happen on this trail is, if we're not happy with the environmental assessment and if things aren't going well, we can get in touch with the Minister of the Environment again and request that he bump this project up to a full environmental assessment. And if that happens, it could be a 3 or 4 year assessment process. And if the city doesn't do a good job on this present limited environmental assessment, then they may be looking at a full environmental assessment. But we would prefer to work with them at this point. And really, we have a lot of information on this trail, on the natural habitat, on the trail use. For instance, we have a box down the trail, and we collected names of people for about a two-week period, and there were over 500 people that signed the forms in there indicating the kind of use that they were enjoying on this trail. And at that time of the year, it was mostly skiing, but now we're seeing that spring is coming, and people are going to be walking this trail constantly. The city, in terms of other options and routes, has been saying from the beginning, and still seems to be holding fairly firm to that position, is the fact that they can't go on the north side of the river because they don't want to go anywhere near a chemical company, that being Hart Chemical, and the abandoned landfill, which is west of Victoria Road. Now, there's some real inconsistencies in that argument, because the present water line runs through the Hart Chemical property, and the present water line also runs through the abandoned landfill site. Our position is that if there's a problem with going through Hart Chemical Company, if there's serious contamination in the soil, that problem needs to be addressed and it needs to be cleaned up. We don't want to see this environment forfeited because of a problem at a chemical company across the river. I'm sure as a good corporate citizen, Hart Chemical, if there is a problem, they'd be interested in cleaning it up, and there is funds available with the Ministry of the Environment to do this kind of work now. In terms of the abandoned landfill, the city's position is, well, if you go into there, you never know what you're going to turn up. Well, they commissioned a study a few years ago that was done by an environmental consulting company, Gartner Lee, and they studied that area and said that it didn't pose any problems. In fact, they did some test wells in there, and the water that came out of the test wells almost met the drinking water standards for the province of Ontario. And it's our understanding from reading that report that basically the landfill site is filled with old debris, building materials, and that sort of thing. Our position again is if there is toxic material in there, then it needs to be cleaned up. This is 1988. I mean, the city's position in terms of let sleeping dogs lie is simply not acceptable. I think it's time to come in and clean those things up if there is a problem. The very abandoned landfill site that they're saying they want to avoid, they cross it when they cross over with this proposed line further downstream. So like I said, there are a number of inconsistencies. Now the present project, if it was hooked up to the existing line, would allow a considerable amount of water to come to the city. And I think it's important to note that this could be done and the city could save themselves a fair bit of money, because the construction on the so-called Segment 2 is going to be over $1 million, and if they hooked up to the present system, then that money could be saved. And it's my understanding that there's got to be a fair bit of life left in the present system. I know the Parks and Recs Department, which is presently doing a reconstruction of the park over here, has no problem with the water line going through. Another possibility, for instance, is to go up to York Road and bring it in York Road, because apparently all the services have to be updated there in the next couple of years. We've also heard arguments that as an environmental group, we shouldn't be opposing the gravity feed line, because the gravity feed line basically delivers water free of charge to the city because of no pumping costs. That may be true for the section that's in gravity feed, and apparently if they were to pump the rest of the water on the other side of the river, it would cost, I've heard the figure of $30,000 a year. Now that may seem like a fair bit in terms of someone's annual income, but in terms of the budget for a city, it's not very much money. And when you consider the population of Guelph, we may be looking at something like 50 cents a person to save this environment, and I think it's really worth it. The Save the Trail group is a fairly large group of citizens that has come together around this issue, and we feel that this is one issue we're working on, but there's many environmental issues in this city, and we're hoping to be able to work with the city towards finding an alternative route and protecting this environment. And it would be a wonderful thing if, in fact, in the future, this area could be managed by a number of different groups in town, like the Trail Group and the Guelph Field Naturalists and people like that could actually look at maintaining this trail as a natural environment, because it is a wonderful resource to the people of Guelph. And I would just like to mention that we have fairly regular meetings about every month at the Delhi Rec Center, and we'll be also looking at going out and speaking to citizens groups. And anyone that's interested in contacting us can phone 763-7981. So just to reiterate our position again, we want to preserve the natural environment, not preserve the site of a chemical company in an abandoned landfill site. Thank you very much.